reading vlog. So I've started this morning with 30 minutes of reading, and the book that I'm currently reading is this one. It's Retrograde by Emily Carter. This one is, I thought it was F1, but it's not F1, but it is some sort of motor car racing, and it's going to be a best friends to lovers romance. This one so far is okay. So we have Brett, who is part of the racing team, and he is struggling a lot with some problems with alcohol. And we have Lucy, who is his best friend. They are very close, and he has spent some time away from the racing because of his problem with alcohol. It's a lot it's a lot darker maybe than I thought it was going to be. It's not like super dark, but there is obviously a lot of talk about Brett's alcohol problems, and they haven't spent a lot of time together. I'm about 100 pages in, or just over 100 pages in, and they've spent quite a lot of time apart. So we will see how this one progresses. But so far I'm liking it, but it's not like my favourite thing. But just to be warned, if you struggle with talks of alcohol issues, then you might want to skip this one. But I will update you as I read more. I don't know how much I'm going to get read today. I will also be listening to an audiobook probably as I get on and do some household chores, but I will keep you updated as and when I read more. So I wanted to do a final reading update for today. I haven't done a lot of physical reading today. I have mainly listened to audiobooks. I obviously read a little bit this morning, which you will have seen in the last clip, but I haven't done any physical reading. I've just been busy doing, you know, stuff around the house, cleaning, tidying, all that sort of stuff. So I've been listening to an audiobook. So I did manage to finish The Friendship Club by Robin Carr. This was a release that came out last year, which I didn't get to. And this one I really enjoyed. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This one is about a group of 4 different women who are all friends. So we have Marnie, Bella, who is her daughter, Sophia, and the name of the 4th one I'm struggling to remember. But basically these all women are all their lives are all interconnected, and we just follow their lives. It was a really good entertaining audiobook. There is I would say there's trigger warnings in here for kind of controlling domestic abuse kind of situations, controlling and stalking. Sophia, one of the characters, is going through this with her boyfriend. He is quite aggressive, controlling, and starts stalking her. So there is discussions of that throughout the book. And yeah, it was just a really fun read. Therese Plummer narrates all of Robin Carr's books, and I absolutely love her narration. So this one was a really good read. And then the other audiobook that I started listening to today was Remember When by Mary Balogh. This is her latest book. As you can see, I have got a physical copy out from the library, and my intention was to read this physically, but then I saw that the library got the audiobook, and Rosalind Landor narrates this audiobook. I think she's narrated quite a lot of Mary Balogh's books, and Rosalind Landor is one of my favourite narrators for historical romances, so I decided to check out the audiobook, and I think I'll kind of read in tandem the book and the audiobook. But this one follows Clarissa, who we've seen in previous books in this series. This is the Ravenswood series. This is book 4 in the Ravenswood series, and this follows Clarissa, who is the mother of some of the previous characters. So this is an older heroine. I think in this book she's 50, which is quite interesting. We don't often see older characters in historical romance, so I'm interested to see where this one goes. And I think it's going to be a romance between Clarissa and her childhood friend Matthew. So they were childhood friends. We see them as children, and they were obviously quite close, and there definitely was an attraction there back when they were younger, but because of their status in society, they couldn't be together. And we have now fast forward, you know, many years into the future. Clarissa is now 50, and they've just kind of met each other again, so we kind of get them, I assume, going to see them rekindle their relationship. Enjoying this one so far. I've not got too far into it, but it's good so far. And as I say, Rosalind Landor is one of my favourite historical romance narrators, so if you like her narration, I would definitely check out the audiobook for this one. As I say, she's narrated this series, and she's narrated lots of other authors' books, like Julia Quinn's books she narrated, and yeah, love her narration. So I don't know how much of my audiobook I will get read during the week. I tend to listen to the majority of my audiobooks at the weekend and then physically read throughout the week, but I will update you probably on Monday evening with what I've read during the day on my way to work, which will probably be retrograde, but I will update you in my next clip. So it is Monday evening, and I thought I would wrap up what I've read today. I actually managed to finish Retrograde by Emily Carter, and this one was such a frustrating read. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I was really disappointed with this one. I had really high hopes because it has a trope that I do really love normally, but this one I just didn't like the way it was executed. So in this one we follow Brett and Lucy, and they are very close friends, and it is their romance. So it's friends to lovers romance, which, as I say, is a trope that I normally really love, but this one, oh, it was so frustrating. So Brett struggles a lot throughout this book with problems with alcohol, which I mentioned in my previous clip, and that took up a big portion of this book. So if that is something that would be difficult for you to read, I would advise not reading this book because it is talked about quite a lot. It also talks about the fact that a few years ago Brett's father actually committed suicide, and so there is a lot of talk about mental health and suicide and the effects that has had on Brett, and he discusses that quite a lot, and so it is quite heavy in parts. Then for the romance element, these characters, they had a lot of chemistry, so the chemistry was there. I could definitely see these two characters being together, but the actual getting together took a really long time. It wasn't until very much like the last couple of chapters to the book where the characters finally confirmed their feelings for one another and finally got together. And it was just so frustrating because throughout the book they spent a lot of time apart, which for a romance is unusual for them characters to be apart for such a long time. As I say, the majority of the book they spent time apart, and it wasn't until those last 2 chapters where they finally confirmed that they both had feelings for one another, and then the epilogue was them getting married like a couple of years later, and it was just really frustrating. There was a lot of promise. I had high hopes for it. At the beginning of the book I'd say more hopeful for it, but yeah, sadly this one just didn't really work for me. There were the topics, the darker, it's not like super dark, but like the more heavier topics took up a lot more of the book, which isn't necessarily always a bad thing, but in a romance you obviously want the characters to be spending time together, and these characters didn't. What I will say is the side characters are really good. So we see Faith and Jensen, whose romance we see in the first book, and there are other characters whose romances are teased a little bit, which I'm guessing we'll probably see in future books in this series. I am not sure if I will pick up more books in this series because the first 2 have been 3-star reads, and this one, as I said, had so much promise but was just very disappointing. So I'm not sure if I would go out of my way to pick up more books in this series, but there is definitely the possibility there, but I'm glad that I read that one. And then I haven't actually started it yet, but the next book that I'm going to move on to is Spiral by Bal Cabra. This one is going to be the next book that I read. I will probably get this read within the next couple of days. What I will say is, I think I've mentioned it in a video previously, but I do get through books quite quickly. As you saw, I actually only started this one yesterday, which was Sunday. And obviously you saw me read for half an hour yesterday at the beginning of this vlog, and then I read the majority of the rest of this book today just in my bus journey. So I get the bus to work and it is about a 40-minute trip each way, so it's over 2 hours of uninterrupted reading. I pretty much get on the bus, sit and read my book like uninterrupted. I don't very often check my phone whilst I'm on the bus. I pretty much read solidly for that time. So because that is all I am doing, I can get through quite a lot, which is why I have obviously read this quite quickly. So I'm sure I will get through this one really quickly. I don't know too much about this one other than it's going to be a sports romance, but I'm excited for this one. I read the first book, Collide, which I liked last year. I can't remember if I gave it 3 or 4 stars, but I have high hopes for this one, and I will update you tomorrow when I've obviously read a bit more. I don't think I'm going to get too much more read this evening, but if I do, then I will, but I probably won't update you until tomorrow when I've read a little bit more and can give you an update. I'm not sure what books I'm going to pick up after this one. I think I'm going to randomly select them. I've got like a spinner wheel that you'll probably have seen me use in other videos, and sometimes when I'm unsure of what to pick up, I'll put a few different selections of books in there and just spin the wheel just to help me kind of pick my book. But this one is what I'm going to read next because it's a library book and it is due back soon, so I want to try and be ahead of the game on that one. So I hope you're having a good Monday, and I will see you guys when I update you tomorrow. So it is Tuesday evening and I thought I would update you on today's reading, and today I actually finished a book, and that was Spiral by Bal Cabra, and I really loved this book. I gave this book 5 stars. This one was so good. Obviously I read this in a day. Obviously the majority of it was read on my bus journey, but I've stayed up a bit later this evening to finish it because I just couldn't put it down. I absolutely love this one. So in this one we follow Elias and Sage, and Elias is a hockey player and he's been struggling. He's not really been performing as well as expected in the game. He's not scored any goals. And so he is really being scrutinised by like the coaches and management of the hockey team because he's not performing as expected. And he has got a little bit of a reputation with the press. The press often report him being with different girls. And at the start of the book, we see this girl that is essentially stalking him. And Sage, her uncle, is one of the I don't think he's a coach, but he's like something to do with the team, like one of the like higher up management type people that looks after the team. And she ends up being at this charity auction that Elias is at, and he is it's that typical like hockey, you know, celebrity auctioning off a date, and he is on stage and he is obviously auctioning off a date, and his stalker enters into the auction and starts bidding on him. And his best friend Aidan, who is the hero of the first book, Collide, tells Sage to bid on him, and he says basically, whatever you do, you can't let this other woman win. And so she bids and wins the date, and they end up fake dating, and the chemistry between these two was like insane. Like right from the very beginning you could tell that there was chemistry between them. They got along really well, and you could just see that obviously it's a romance, so you know where it's going to go anyway, but the chemistry was there. And what made this one a bit more interesting than other romances is that the rumours about Elias being with other women were completely false. He'd been celibate for 4 years, and that was out of choice. And he also didn't drink as well, which I think is quite an interesting choice, because obviously it's a sports romance, and there is these two characters, Elias and Sage, aren't in college, but he has some friends from his college years that do appear who are still at college, and it's quite unusual for a college characters not to drink, so I really did appreciate that he didn't drink as well, because I don't drink, and I find that it's almost like it seems being like completely shocking if you don't drink. So I really appreciated that was included in this book. And yeah, just overall absolutely loved this one, would definitely recommend it. I liked the first book, but this one completely blew it out of the park, and I cannot recommend this one enough. I'm really excited for the third book, I think, which is going to be called Revolve, I think it is, which is coming out later in the year. Can't wait to pick that one up. Definitely recommend. And then I don't know which book I'm going to read next, but I have my spinner wheel here, which I'm going to use to select my next read. I've put 6 titles into here, and I'm basically just going to spin it and see what I get, and then we'll read from that. Spin the wheel and see which one it lands on. And that was the biggest one that's on there. I mean, I am really excited for this one, but this is the longest one. And it is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. So I am really excited for this one. I really loved the first book in this series, and I immediately kind of ordered the second one, but I am a little bit intimidated by the length of this one. Let's see how long it is. 726 pages, so it is long, and this is going to be quite difficult to carry on the bus with me, but I'm going to do it. I'm really excited to check out this one. This is the second book in the Nightborn duet, which is part of the Crowns of Nyaxia series. Basically, this series is going to be made up of 3 sets of duets, and this is book 2, obviously, in the first duet, which is the Nightborn duet, and it is vampires. And I'm not going to go too much into the plot, but yeah, really excited for this one. Book 1 ended on such a cliffhanger, so can't wait to get into this one. I will let you know tomorrow how much I get read and what my initial thoughts are. This one is probably going to take me a few days to read. I definitely won't be reading this in a day, but yeah. That's my update for Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow for my next update. So it's Wednesday, and I am here to update you on my reading for the day. So I started reading this one, which is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. I am really enjoying this one so far. I've actually read quite a lot of it, so this is how much I've read so far today. And I can't really say too much about this one because it is a sequel, so I don't want to spoil the first book, so I'll kind of give a summary for the first book. So this is a vampire series, and in the first book we follow Aurea, I think is how you say it, and she is human, and she is discovered as a child by the vampire king Vincent, and he basically takes her in as his own child. She sees him as a father, and he obviously treats her as his child. And he raises her in the vampire world, and they have this trial that happens I think it's every 100 years or something like that, and basically it's a bit like the Hunger Games. It's a fight to the death to find the most powerful, strong vampire. And the winner of the trial gets a wish granted by the goddess, and we follow Aurea as she is entered into the trials, so we follow her journey through the trials, and there is a little bit of a romance in there between her and Rain, I think is how you say it, and there's a lot of action that happens in the first book. The first book ends on a major cliffhanger, and a lot of things are revealed, which obviously I won't spoil. And this book picks up pretty much where that one leaves off. As I say, I won't go into too much detail because that giving away the summary for this one will definitely spoil the ending for the first book. But this one picks up where that one leaves off, and yeah, as I say, so far I am really enjoying it. I'm not sure where in terms of, it's a bit too early to say where I'm kind of leaning towards in terms of rating, but so far I am really enjoying it. The writing is really easy to follow, and it's been a few weeks since I read the first book, but I've really got back into the world. It's super easy to get back into the world, and I feel like she's, although this picks up where it leaves off, she does a good way of getting, she's done it in a good way where you can kind of ease yourself back into the world and the series, because I don't know how much of a gap there was between these two books. Obviously I haven't had to wait to pick up this one, but this wouldn't have been published when the first one was released. So she does do a good job of, you know, getting you back into the world. I find sometimes with fantasy series, and one of the things that puts me off reading them is some of them are so long, and then there's such big gaps, like almost like a year in a lot of cases, particularly for traditionally published books, like a year in between books, and sometimes it's very difficult to kind of remember all the details of the first book when you're going into like the next book in the series. And I don't always have time to reread books, especially ones that are like as thick as this. But this one, as I say, it does do a really good job of easing you back into the world, kind of recaps the story in a way that definitely reminds you of the story but doesn't feel repetitive, because I think that can also be an issue where they kind of recount the last events of the previous book and then it feels repetitive, but this doesn't feel like that. And yeah, as I say, I'm really enjoying this one so far. I'm interested to see where this will go. As I say, this series is made up of duets, so this book will end the Nightborn duet, and then we have, I'm not sure what the next duet's called, I think it's, does it tell me in here? Shadowborn duet is the next series, and I think that follows Misha, who is a character that we are introduced to in the first book, and she appears in this one as well, and I'm really excited to see her books. But that is today's update. I'm hoping that I get this finished before the beginning of March, because I would just love to have kind of had it rounded off for February, but we will see. As I say, it is a very long book, but I have read quite a bit of it already today, just over 240 pages in between my bus journey and a little bit of reading this evening. So hope you're having a good day, and I will update you tomorrow for Thursday's update. I debated on whether I should do an update for Thursday, because I am still reading The Ashes and the Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. I am now 66% of the way through, so I've read like a decent chunk of this, and obviously I can't really tell you a lot about it because with it being a sequel, there is a lot that obviously happens in here that would kind of spoil the events of the first book, particularly the ending. So I feel like I'm limited in terms of what I can say about this book, but what I will say is I am really enjoying it. This book is really fast paced. I am flying through it. The writing is really accessible for a fantasy book. It's easy to follow and it's really engaging. So I am sucked into the story and really am struggling to put it down. I have put it down this evening because obviously it'll be time to go to bed and I have work in the morning, so I need to get up early. But when I am reading it on the bus to and from work, I'm really struggling to put it down because I just want to keep reading it. I want to find out what's going to happen. And yeah, I as I say, really loving it. The action has really picked up in this book. particularly I'd say maybe like the last 10% I've read, the action is really picking up and we're really getting into the kind of the thick of it. I can't wait to see how this is all going to wrap up, because this one is going to be the end of the Nightborn duet, and then we are going to move into, I think it's called the Shadowborn duet, which I'm really excited for. I think that book is going to follow a character that I have really enjoyed seeing in these first two books, so really excited for that. I haven't actually got that book on order yet. It's available to get from my library, but I've reached my reservation limit again, so I need to wait until I've read a few more books have come in from my reservations so I can reserve it. I have already pre-ordered a paperback copy of that book. I ideally want to have them all in paperback rather than having a mixture of paperback and hardback. And the paperback comes out in July, but I will be reserving the hardback from the library so I can get it read. But really loving this one, and I can't wait to finish it. I should hopefully probably get that finished tomorrow, so I'll be able to kind of give you final thoughts tomorrow. I have also listened to a little bit more of Remember When by Mary Balogh today. Just when I was cooking tea this evening, I put on the audiobook just so I had something to listen to. And I'm still not very far into this one. I'm about probably 20% in. And as I say, I'm listening to the audiobook because it's narrated by Rosalind Landor, who I absolutely love as a audio narrator. She is probably one of my favourite narrators, particularly for historical romance. And so far I'm enjoying this one. It's follows an older characters. So we have Clarissa Ware and Matthew Taylor, and Clarissa I think is now in her 50s, so we're following quite older characters, particularly for historical romance, which is really interesting. And they are just kind of rekindling their friendship. That there's not been a romance as such. As I say, they've kind of started rekindling their friendship, but it's going to be their romance, and I am really enjoying it so far, and hopefully I will get that one finished over the weekend. And they've got a few others checked out at the library that I really want to get to as well. But that is my reading update for today. Tomorrow is Friday, and I am really excited for it to finally be the weekend, because it feels like it has been a long week this week, and I'm looking forward to getting through to some reading over the weekend. So I will see you tomorrow with an update. As I say, hopefully I'll have finished the Carissa Broadbent book, so I'll be able to give you my final thoughts on that one tomorrow. So it is Friday evening, and I'm going to update you on what I have read today. So I did finish reading The Ashes and the Starcursed King by Carissa Broadbent, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave this one 5 stars as well. I obviously read the first book in this series, which is called The Serpent and the Wings of Night, and I loved that one, and this is a really great continuation. We get obviously this couple, Aurea and Rain, we get their kind of ending, their kind of main story is concluded, although we will get to see them in the rest of the series, but their main story is concluded, and I thought that this was wrapped up really, really well. I won't go obviously into too much detail about what happens in this one, because I think obviously you really need to read the first one and then obviously go into this one. But this one, I just love that the writing is really fast paced. This didn't take me very long to finish, even though it is over 700 pages. I really flew through it. I found myself wanting to keep reading it and was struggling to kind of put it down because I just wanted to keep reading and find out what happens to this couple. The romance is really good. Obviously, we know it's a romance, so these two are going to end up together, although they do have a rocky journey to get to their ending. But I really like these two characters together, and I cannot recommend this series enough. If you haven't already read it, I would highly, highly recommend picking it up. The books are also available on Kindle Unlimited as well. And so I finished that one. I read most of that, finished most of that on my book bus journey to and from work. So I only had maybe 20 pages or so left to read when I actually got home. So this evening I've read quite a decent amount of this book, which is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I am just over 100 pages in, 127 pages in, and so far I'm liking it. Grady Hendrix predominantly writes horror books, and I haven't got to the horror aspect of this one quite yet. So in this one, I don't know too much about the plot, but from what I've read so far, we are following a young girl who is 15, and she is pregnant. She is not married, and this book is set in the 70s, so very much it was still frowned upon to be to have a child when not being married, and her parents are very ashamed of the fact that she is pregnant, and they take her to this house, which is basically a home where all these pregnant young girls go to, and they are obviously separated from their family, separated from society, and kind of sort of taken care of, but yeah, and they're not allowed to talk about their past, their name, where they're from, or anything like that. So when they get to this house, the owner of the house, I think she's Miss Wellwood or something like that, she gives these girls new names and and tells them where they're from, like a place that they can say that they are from, and basically makes up a new identity for them. So as I say, I've not got too far into this one yet, but so far the main character, I can't remember what her name is, but she's called Fern in the house, but I can't remember what her name was before that. But she is basically settling into the house, meeting the other girls, kind of coming to terms with her new life, because she has basically been abandoned by her parents at this house, and she doesn't really know what is going on. The girls are very much taught that what they are going through is a punishment, it's a sin, and all of this, but they are taught very little about what is actually going to happen, and when it comes to giving birth, they know very little about that, and that is not information that is shared with them. It is very much taught that what you've done is a great sin and great shame on your family and all of that. But so far I'm liking it. I'm interested to see where the horror element's going to come in, and yeah, I will update you tomorrow when I read more. Hopefully I might be able to get this finished over the weekend, even maybe tomorrow, because this one is a library book and is due back next weekend. So I've got, I think, three library books that are due back next weekend that I can't renew, so I really need to get them read this week. So I think I'll be predominantly reading library books for the following week rather than any of my own books, but we will see. And yeah, I'll update you tomorrow once I read more. So today is Sunday and I want to wrap up this weekly vlog. You will see that I didn't share anything on Saturday. I didn't share any reading updates for Saturday, and that is because I didn't really read very much on Saturday. I spent the morning kind of doing, household jobs, cleaning, laundry, all of that fun stuff, but so I didn't really get a lot read. I wasn't really in the mood to listen to an audiobook on Saturday morning where I was doing that, so I was listening to music instead. Normally I would listen to an audiobook, but I wasn't really in the mood on Saturday. And then I went out for lunch and was out quite a lot of the afternoon, and then by the time I got back, I wasn't really feeling in a reading mood, so I didn't really read much on Saturday, so I didn't have any updates. But it is Sunday today and I just want to wrap it up before starting another vlog. So I'm still working my way through Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This one I'm not necessarily loving. So the premise of this sounds quite interesting. So we are following a group of girls who are classed as wayward girls. They've got pregnant at young ages outside of wedlock, and they are sent away to this home they are viewed as being like sinners, and the treatment that they are getting is not great. And they are introduced to the world of witchcraft, which they start dabbling in. And I don't know, I feel like I was expecting more from this book. I mean, obviously I've still got more to read. I'm over halfway through, but I just feel like not very much has happened. And yeah, it's not quite what I was expecting. As I say, I've still got a lot to read, so that there is still potential that a lot could happen. But so far, I'm not necessarily loving it, and I'm leaning towards more of a 3-star rating. I will finish this book. It is not one that I necessarily feel like I want to DNF, but it's also not one that I'm necessarily excited to be picking up. But yeah, that is my update for today. I have obviously read more of this one, and I've listened to a bit more of Remember Me this morning. No, it's not called Remember Me, it's called, the Mary Balog one that I'm listening to. Remember When. I have listened to a little bit of that this morning, and I am enjoying that one, but I am taking my time getting my way through that one. But yeah, not too much has happened that I feel like I need to share on that one. I'm still about 30% in, so it's definitely one that I'm taking my time with. But they are my reading updates for this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I know I don't really do a lot of like exciting things other than share my reading updates, but I don't really do like much during the week. I pretty much go to work, come home, read in between that, and eat and go to bed. That's pretty much my life at the moment. I don't really do anything interesting worth filming outside of that. So I hope you guys enjoy like seeing my reading updates throughout the week. I think it's a good way to kind of keep what you're reading fresh in your mind. And obviously I can refer back to this at the end of the month, because I've given some little updates along the way, so I can refer back to it, because I read a lot of books, and sometimes when it gets to the end of the month it's like, oh, what happened in that book? It's like very hard to remember sometimes, especially when it's a book that I'm not necessarily loving. Like if it's a 3-star mediocre book, you know, you don't always remember all of the details of that. So I quite like, you know, doing these kind of daily updates to kind of share my thoughts on the books as I go along. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please let me know what you are reading, and if you've got any recommendations for what I should pick up next, then please do share those, and I will see you guys in my next video.